Yo, 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 everybody, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of the What Now podcast. Spencer and Zach back. Man, we have had some awesome guests on recently, and you guys are in store for yet another awesome guest. Zach, tell everybody who we have today.
Yeah, we are joined by none other than Dr. Austin Cohen. He's the founder and creator of Corrective Chiropractic, which he now owns 14 different clinics, which is insane. Something we have not had on the podcast is owner of more than 10 clinics. So this is going to be exciting. He's also the founder of L5 or L4, L5.
L5.
L5 marketing, as well as Chiro 180. He's a powerhouse. We had the chance to listen to him and work out alongside him at Chiro WealthCon down in Miami. And we are like, this is the guy we got to have on the podcast. So Dr. Austin, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, guys. Spencer and Zach is back, by the way. That was a good opening, Spencer. I like the jingle there.
Thanks, dude. It's it's my inner poet coming out. But
He's
dude, I think
modern day Eminem.
It was so cool to get to meet you because we have a couple of mutual friends in Chiro WealthCon, but I think post Chiro WealthCon, out of everyone who has spoken at that event, when I'm talking to people, you're the person that I hear quoted the most out of all of the speakers that were on stage. Wow. I feel like talking to people who were at the event, the people who remember anything from any of the talks, like off the dome, I think some quotes were from you. And so I think it was really cool, man. You made a big impact at that event for people. So it was good.
I appreciate that, man. What were some of the, like when how does it make you feel? No, well, when you hear, that's interesting. So when you say that, what were some of the ones that you heard? Like if you were to say the top two or top one, I think that'd be
biggest, most repeated
hear back.
Quote. Yeah, the biggest, most repeated quote is like, people are saying, I can't compare my chapter 40 to your chapter 4. And your chapter 4 is going to look so much different than mine. So I can't necessarily give you advice on what you have to do. I can only tell you what I have done and see if it's applicable to you. So, I thought that was, I hear that. I think I've heard that 6 or 7 times now.
Wow. Yeah. And I think where that for me came from was, dude, I'm a chiropractor. I still practice. And so I think where it came for me was when I first started, I would go to seminars all the time, man. And I compared myself to all these very successful docs because I thought I should be there already. And I didn't understand the grind that they had to go through and the wins and the losses and the stress. I didn't understand that they had to go through to get to where they got to. And it really took me a while, man, to get clear on that concept. Because I was like literally chapter 2 of my career. I was on my first office manager. We were probably seeing like 100 a week, but probably not charging people enough because, we were scared and we were more focused on volume and less about revenue because we were creating more of a clinic atmosphere, less of a business. So I think as I became more clear about what was important to me in my life, I cared less about what people thought. And I was able to kind of go through chapters faster, really, man, and move forward. It took some hard lessons throughout the journey, but yeah, that's good. I'm glad people said that one because that one, if you get clear on that, I think that could really be a big difference. I think it's also careful for people not to use it as an excuse for why they can't grow too.
100%.
Can you expand a little bit more on that too?
Yeah, right. Like, so some people could say, well, I'm only in chapter 7. I'm not in chapter 40, but maybe they're stuck. Right. And they're saying that quote as a reason for why they shouldn't grow to the next level. Like, well, because what they're doing is maybe they're not getting to the gym early and they're scared to fire maybe a C player, not maybe upgrade them to like an A player, but they're holding on to these excuses, these limiting beliefs for why they haven't raised their fees in 5 years. Just so many different things. Right. And they use that as reasons why they're not in the next chapter. But really, if they just like chapter 8 is raise your fees by $5 a visit. Chapter 9, like you actually have to take action in order to move through the book, right? To move along this journey. And if you're not taking action, you're just stuck. And nobody wants to be there. Like nobody wants to be stuck. That's not a fun way to live our lives. So
what systems do you have in place so that you're not getting stuck at chapter 7 or chapter 10? Like, how are you checking in with yourself?
It's interesting, man. I love chaos. I don't know about you guys. You guys like chaos?
Big time.
Yeah. Right.
I feel like that's all.
I feel like that shows me I'm growing. That's all. Yeah. Right. And when you guys will see, you guys are very strong businessmen as well. And you guys will see as you move along the journey of whether you decide you want like a Josiah Fitzsimmons, which is one massive practice, or do you want what we have, which is multi-unit. I don't think what I do is meant for everybody. By the way, I don't think what Josiah does is actually meant for everybody. However, though, I think when you get to these levels, you are going to have a certain amount of chaos, and you have to be very, very, very adaptable. And so, to Zach's point of like systems, right? I think a lot of people, I talk about this all the time, where I think a lot of people create a lot of boundaries in their life. They'll say, well, I only do work between these hours. I don't answer calls from people after 6 p.m. It's like, okay, well, you're probably not going to be able to grow to a certain level if you're putting that hardcore of a boundary or ceiling on yourself. Now, I do think there are certain systems you could have. Like Spencer knows, one of my really good friends, one of our systems is creating experiences and relationships. That's like a big system for me, and like building traditions around that. And so we were just this past weekend at one of my friends' farms, one-on-one grind. Like all I did is focus on family. And by the way, Spencer, you'll appreciate this. Mike doesn't even have internet at the place. So what's great about that is like we were literally just had to be like with each other in present time consciousness, which was awesome. But when you build really, really strong systems, the possibilities, man, are endless. And I think some of them are going to be hard. Waking up early, I think is a great system to have built in there. I think hobbies, I think traditions, just there are certain things that people could build into their life that will really help a lot, by the way, for the growth.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And when you say wake up early, you're a 4 a.m. guy, huh?
Not always.
Okay.
So, I will be though. So for example, like I take my kids, I had to leave my house today at 6:45 to get my kids to school. And I never miss a workout, right? Nobody ever says to themselves while they're laying in their bed, they're like, I'll go later, or I'll take a take. Everyone uses the same excuse. I'm guilty of this as well, by the way. Now, every morning when I wake up at like 4:45 or 5, in my brain, I'm thinking, oh, should I use today as a recovery day? I've worked out a lot recently. Maybe I shouldn't go in. I really need the sleep. We all go through the same excuses. Yeah, right. Like
my score, your Oura ring,
I was at 37% today, man. I was horrible. But you know what? I got to the 4:45 a.m. gym class today. One of my systems is belonging to a gym that has classes starting at 4:45 a.m. as late as 7:30, and they do Sunday classes. So that way, when my kids do have to leave at 6:45, I can go to the 4:45. I was home by 5:50. Still had plenty of time to get my kids ready, get for breakfast, take them to school, and was able to work out and get a great workout in this morning. So just, it's all about not placing, I think we place so many boundaries, man, on ourselves and so many ceilings, because we hear those talking points and they sound easy, right? Like one of the easy ones is, yeah, after 6 o'clock, I don't answer my phone. I don't work on the weekends. I don't mix personal, professional. We have all these don'ts, right? We limit ourselves so much and place all these like ceilings like on top of ourselves, which we hear from talking heads, but that's easy to do. And for anybody who wants something big, I think, or anybody who wants to create like a strong goal, it's going to take a lot of grind. It's going to take a lot of work. I've done 2 Ironman. I've completed a 100-mile run, and I've trained with Navy SEALs. And I can tell you right now, it was not easy to go through any of those trainings. It was actually one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life, because that's what it takes to do something big, right? Those are big goals for a lot of people. And to do the big things, we got to go through some hard times.
Yeah, I think that's such a interesting point is, as someone that wants to also do a 100-miler, an Ironman, that's all on the bucket list. And so often I find myself when like writing down my goals, it's like, well, I also want a family. So like, I don't know if like the Ironman is realistic. Like I want to be at home, 4 or 6 hour training sessions. That's a long time away from the kids. But one thing I've found so interesting is like learning your story is, okay, well, if you want it, you just got to create the systems in order to get after it. So
one of the things that goes through my brain, Zach, is like, I think this is great. How old are your kids?
They are not born yet. I don't have any kids yet.
All right. So this is perfect. And I think this is true for anybody who has young kids, right? I have a 7 and a 9-year-old. Last year, when I went through my Navy SEAL training, there were 6 of us that started and only 2 of us completed. It was me and another guy. And it started at 7 in the morning, and it wasn't going to finish until the next day at about 7 to 8 in the morning. And it was essentially like a hell week just put into 24 hours. And so it got to 7 p.m., 12 hours down, where we've been through Murph, we've been through all the hundreds and thousands of pull-ups. I mean, it's just been like insane what we've been through already. And the last portion of it, the last 12 hours, was going to be surf torture, where we were going to go down to the ocean in California, and we were going to do surf torture. And in my brain, I was justifying why I should quit. I was like, who am I proving this to? Why do I need to do this? I've already worked out enough. I've already done a lot of hard things. What else would I gain from this if I continue on the next 12 hours? Because they were saying it's going to be the hardest 12 hours of your life, the next 12 hours. And you know what went through my brain? And this is great for any young family, for somebody who has a young family, was if my son called me, was like, Dad, I'm 12 hours in, I have 12 hours left. I think I want to quit. I don't know if I should go through the rest of it. What do you think I should do? We would all tell our kids, you stick through that, you finish it through, you grind, you're gonna be so proud of yourself. Remember tomorrow, right? That's a quote I live my life by. It's like, remember tomorrow. How would you feel on Monday morning if you knew you quit 12 hours in and you didn't go through the next 12 hours? And I thought to myself, I said, you know what? If I would tell my son to continue on, then I've got to show him what it looks like for a father to continue on. And so obviously I stuck it out, and I'm so grateful I did, by the way. No one ever regrets obviously completing things and quitting, but everyone regrets quitting things early. And so, I think for me and for people that have young families, that's something to think about, right? It's like they say, I don't know if I could do an Ironman with like a young family because I want to be there. Well, it's like, show your family what it looks like to be a good father, but also to be able to complete hard things and find the time to do it. Because I've done it. I trained for a 100-mile run with 2 young kids. And what I had to do was I had to run 20 miles on Saturdays and 30 miles on Sunday. So what I would do is I would wake up at 3 a.m. and I would run for 4 hours on Sunday mornings. And so I'd usually run from 3:30 till about 7:30. And then what I would have to do is take my kids to birthday parties. Now, the excuse people will say is he's built different. He has stronger mindset, right? And I don't think that's the case, by the way. I really don't. I think if you can get clear on the why, I think when people really have strong whys, they can do anything. And for me, it's about having kids that look up to a father from a leadership standpoint of, I want my kids, there's certain like qualities and things I want my kids to have. But I got to show them that. I can't just tell them. And I think that's like our profession, right? Like y'all think about chiropractic coaches. How many chiropractic coaches tell people what they should do? But if you look deep down in their life, are they really like living that? I don't know.
Yeah,
So it's something to think about, Zach. It's like, I just think it's interesting for somebody who doesn't have kids. Like it's a mindset shift.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, massive.
appreciate that a lot.
One of our other guys, who I mean, you guys.
What are some things though? So you want to do an Ironman? You said.
Yeah, Ironman's been on the bucket list. I did like my first sport. People probably don't know this, but it was actually cycling. Like I was the 12-year-old and like the tights and everything, riding around like 40-mile bike rides. And then I became an offensive lineman in football, and so it's tough to be an offensive lineman and a cyclist. They don't really pair very well. But after stopping football, I've always wanted to go back and complete a full Ironman.
Do you have like actually like an Ironman you want to do like already set or no?
Coeur d'Alene, because I think Coeur d'Alene in Idaho is beautiful.
Yes.
Would be up there. And then also Lake Placid, just being from the Northeast, I think would be really cool.
Well, I always tell people, man, like one thing we talk to our docs about in our team is right now it's November 19th, right now, 2024. We're having this conversation. We're probably about a month late from setting goals. I think everyone I'm a big believer in setting goals October 1 through October 31st, by the way, for the following year. So that would be a personal goal, right? A personal goal would be to complete an Ironman. One of my personal goals for 2025 is to complete tactical games training, nice. not to win it or anything yet. I do want to just see how I would fare out. But I'm doing the one May 10th and 11th in Lawrence, South Carolina. And I think what's cool is like when people set goals in October, right? First off, for something like you're like, man, I really want to do this Ironman. Like I just haven't registered for it yet. I pulled the trigger yet, but I need to do it because I just need to prove to myself I can do it. And maybe it's like even just a half Ironman, but I think October is a really good time for people to start booking things, right? Because I think when you do it, a lot of people wait till January. And January to me is a little too late. If you're in October, right, it's like I can already plan. Like I'm telling you, hey, May, I've already got booked out when I'm doing my personal goal. And I still have, 60 days or whatever it is left of the year in order to keep planning out the goals for the 365 days. Where if you start in January, well, what if the event you want to do is in February? Well, you're not going to be able to do it.
Right.
So I think for people, it gives them a great planning time to do that. Man, I'm a big advocate though of setting I do what are called the 5 Ps: personal, people, play, prosperity, and professional. 2 goals under each one. The 5 Ps every year. I build those out. Is awesome. And it's always interesting if I look back over the last 15 years. I've done doing this for 15 years. These 5 goals, and I actually have my daughter do them too as well. And what's interesting is I love the quote of people always overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10. And you guys are going to see this too as well as you guys look back, I think, on this podcast of really what your goals are for this podcast and to see where it is in 10 years with consistency. You'd be like, man, wow, looking back, like what we did, like this is special. Yeah. I think because I do think there's a lot to this, and you guys are both super smart people where you're going to find strategies and ways to make this.
Do you only I want to let Spencer get into this too.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been hogging the questions, but do you only ever do 1 year goals? Because like I just finished right before this podcast setting up like my 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year goals.
Professional goals though, probably.
Personal, professional, and financial.
Nice. I personally do 1 year for
Okay.
the 5 Ps. Professionally though, we do to your point, yeah, we do the 1, 3, 5, 10.
Cool.
We follow a system called EOS. There's a book called Traction I've talked about before. It's in our Chiro 180 software, and it's it's transformational for any business. By the way, any business I think should be operating under the system, unless they have another foundation or any system. By the way, just operate under a system. But EOS and Traction, so good. Man. Do you do that, by the way?
It's on my to-dos is to read and implement. That's a goal, or not really a goal, but like a necessity to implement in 2025.
Dude, look at this, man. I feel like we're just creating goals today, guys. This is an awesome conversation. Zach's already got professional, implement Traction, and then personal, complete an Ironman. This is great.
Dude,
Where do we
yeah,
go
that's good,
to
man.
play?
We're just like all in on this episode, which is so solid, dude. I heard, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that's such an inspiration for me, Austin, is just how much action you take. Like, I feel like you just take massive amounts of instantaneous action. And that all comes, I think, from your planning. I had never heard before this year about planning, 2025 in October of the year before,
Right.
But then it makes so much sense because, I mean, when you look at quarter 4, right, that's more of a time of reflection on the past year and setting up for the future. Because, I mean, dude, you have the holidays. Like, it's like, I feel like we literally just hit October 1st and now we're almost at the end of November. And then, you're going to have Christmas and all of those things like come through. And, it really is super smart. Caitlin and I were doing our, couples planning meeting next weekend to go and do that because we're like, yeah, dude, like January is too late. And, when you go back and you say like, what would I tell my son to do? I feel like that's like a big thing that stays in the back of my mind and the decisions that I'm making. And, one of our other guys that we're in network with, his name's Jared. But Jared, had said hell on earth would be to meet the man that I could have been. And I feel like that's like just a big principle that we see you living your life through it, like just going all in and just being like a really awesome example of just good fatherhood, a good masculinity role model for your, for your son. So it's just really cool.
Yeah. And I have a daughter too, by the way, but I also think we, as humans and fathers or mothers, whatever we are, I do think that they're only as happy as their most unhappy child. So if your child is wherever your child is, for example, if they're not a happy child and they're depressed and anxiety, no matter what else is going on in your life, it doesn't matter. Like literally nothing else matters in your life. You could be $20 million business, 50% profit margins, own all this real estate, whatever. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters unless your kids are at a place. And by the way, here's what's interesting is you can have 2 children who love their parents. They're happy kids. They're good kids. They're athletic, and your maybe business isn't doing as well as you thought. You'll be so much happier. Like I've gone through some hard times, and I can tell you right now, what for me the clarity is, man, just like my family, right? Just like knowing that they're happy, right? They're protected, they're provided for. Gosh, and you guys are seeing this too as well with like other people. It is I think just one of those clear things. And Spencer, your point, I think one thing that's important for people to understand is getting clear on time, right? I mean, I'm 42. I'm still young, but also I'm not going to be around forever. And I know that we all live on this earth one time. At least that's my belief system, is that I have one life on this earth. Why would I not do everything I can to maximize it? Now, I'm not one of those people that says, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I actually get a lot of sleep, by the way. So I'm a big believer in recovery and longevity and health. And sleep is a big component to that. I mean, I go to bed at probably 9 o'clock. And let's say I wake up at 4:30 or 5. That's still, dude, 7 to 8 hours. But as I think you guys do some biohacking too as well. And with the Whoop, you can understand restorative sleep numbers. But yeah, just I think getting clear on time, right? Is like, why waste it? And I want to create so many experiences. And we were talking about this earlier, but also relationships. Like Spencer, you and I have a good friend who's similar to us, and I've been friends with him longer and probably know a lot more about him. But you're building a really good relationship with Mike too as well. And Mike's a good friend of Spencer and I, and very successful guy, but also a great father, a great husband, and a great person. And when you're around people like that, you have to level up. I just spent this past weekend on his farm with him, with our sons. We were hunting and we were fishing and we were shooting guns and we were four wheeling and we were s'moring and we were bonfiring and everything you could imagine. Okay. And if I were to say to Mike this past weekend, is a really good friend of mine, I said, man, this economy sucks, man. People are weird. My employees are terrible. My work sucks. He'd be like, Austin, I don't want to hang out with you, right? Like, he's not going to want to have a relationship with me. And so I think and that's why I'm just such a big, like, I love having such a good sphere and circle of people around me, knowing I got to stay leveled up too as well. Like, if I'm colluding or complaining around my friends, they would fire me in 2 seconds from their friend group. That's just not the people I associate with. And and I think if people find themselves in that mode of complaining, whining, I remember early on in my career, guys, and this is funny. You guys have probably seen this too as well. You guys are a little, I'm a little. There we go. I'm a little older than you guys, but hey, I remember early in my career, this bothers me so much, but you can tell. But I remember early in my career, I said to a friend, I said, hey, I'm so excited. We got this new location that's about to launch. I'm so pumped for it. I think it's going to do really well. He's like, don't you think you're expanding too fast? It's like, not what I want to hear. And we're no longer friends.
Got to cut them out, man.
To be around people like Mike, exactly, right? Okay, just staying around high-level people, right? I'm 42. I'm so pumped. I've got such a strong friend group, which took a long time to build, by the way. It took me a really long time to make friends because my first 5 or 6 years of practice, I wasn't doing that. I was all focused on work. And I found excuses for why I couldn't have friends. And now I'm so grateful for it. And I feel so awesome that at 42, I can have these relationships now for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the things, I was like really thinking about your Instagram story that you're talking about. Some people have boundaries, other people have systems. But I think the underlying thing that, really fuels your system is your standards, right? Because a lot of people are saying like, oh, I have to have the boundary so I can set myself up so I can hang out with my kids at the house and I can also work at the same time. It's, I really love what you say about how you're saying, there are no boundaries, there's only systems. And the level that your systems play up to is the standards for what you want for your life. Like you're saying, like, hey, I have the system where I hang out with my friends, but the system that lets me hang out with my friends is dependent on the standard of the friends that I let in. Right. My standard is to show up and go to the gym, take care of my health and wellness. It's not my boundary of saying, oh, I can't hang out with my kids or I can't go to work until I work out at the gym. I think a lot of people say like, oh, I can't do this until I do that. Right. It's I do this so that I can do that. I set this up so that I can do this. Right. The reason that you're not in the office 40 hours a week cracking backs and adjusting people is because you have to have a system that allows you to do both so you can scale your business, because your standard is I need my businesses to run without me because my standard is I show up for my kids at home, right? My standard is I do this. So I have a system that sets up to do that.
Yeah. And I love what you said earlier about how you guys have your family planning meeting, right? Your family financial planning meeting, right? And, I think to that point, it's like even just having traditions, right? Like that's a standard. Yep. And for us, right, is I think the more also traditions we have is one of the best things like people can build for their lives where, and now, by the way, these are good traditions, right? So for example, my favorite tradition of the year is on Thursday morning of Thanksgiving Day, my whole family and I would do the Gobble Wobble 5K. I love it. It's like the best tradition we have as a family. But to Spencer, like this past weekend, Mike and I said, my son plays baseball. He does travel ball, which ends usually November 7th or 8th. So going forward, we said the weekend after baseball season's over, because it's like an 8-month commitment from February till November. And so one of our things is that first weekend, dude, we go to the farm and we just hang out, do some guy stuff. So man, it's like, yes, that is a great, to hear your reflection, by the way, on it is good. But I mean, it sounds like with what you're doing, like the family financial planning, right? Like you'll probably do that forever and you'll do that in the last quarter of the year. That's something you and your wife, Caitlin, y'all do that. And you're just raising up, and to be around people, like I know you're around very successful people, you're in the right rooms with the right people. That just even increases that standard too, as well, of hearing what they're doing. You're like, oh, wow, they're not complaining. They're not being negative. Doesn't matter who the president is. They're still going to grind. It's not going to dictate their life. They're just going to still do what they got to do. So that's good, man.
Yeah. I think what like some people might be thinking listening is they're like, oh, I'm fired up. Like
this is what I'm about to ask too, actually. So go ahead.
How did you go about, and maybe it wasn't the other way around, but like, how did it go early on in your marriage, getting your spouse on board, especially being someone that's so driven and motivated? Or is that like
Dude.
already?
Yeah,
You know,
where does all this come
such a good
from?
question. That is the best question ever. When I hire new doctors, for example, I actually interview their wife or spouse, whether it doesn't matter, a husband or I don't care. But I got to interview them. That usually tells me how successful they're going to be. By the way,
Wow.
there are a lot of spouses who I've hired doctors, and the spouses have been limiting factors for that chiropractor to be successful.
Hmm.
And I've been very grateful. Where I started dating my wife, we started dating when I was in chiropractic school. I was in like third or fourth quarter. And so she got to see me being crazy in chiropractic school. Like my buddy and I started this organization called Innate Enterprise. We used to host annual retreats every year for like 30 chiropractic students. We used to host an event called a Chiropractic All-Star event, which is in February. We had 500 people come one year from Life University. We were like 10th quarter students doing this stuff. So she saw a lot of the craziness while I was in school and also in my first couple of years. And you know what? Here's what's interesting. My first year in practice, I remember there was a week where I had no new patient on the books. And I was like, man, I got no new patient on the books. I'm really frustrated. She's like, well, why are you coming home?
Dang.
I was like, good question. Why am I coming home? I'm staying here. So then what I remember doing is I stayed at the office. By the way, I spent the night at the office that night. And this is not like oh yeah, did he really? Is he just telling it to tell a story? No, like what I tell is actually like real. Like I'm not a BSer, okay? Just so y'all know. Like I'm not gonna ever say something I never did. So what I did was it was like 8 o'clock at night. I started going on Twitter, okay, before it was X, and I would go to search and I typed in headaches, back pain, neck pain, and I started reaching out to people that were like, oh, I have the worst headache right now, and you could see like the location, right? They were in Atlanta, and so I started reaching out, and what I did there was a guy named Johnny O. He was actually a DJ for 95.5 here in Atlanta, Georgia, which is it's pretty big, right? Atlanta, Georgia is a big city, and so I reached out to him on Twitter. I was like, hey man, sorry to hear about your headache. Would love to help you out. Guess who came in the next day as a new patient? Johnny O'Leary, new patient in my office. Because I reached out to him on Twitter, but I had the support. To the earlier question is, I had the support from the spouse to push me to get there, and I think that's really, really important to have a spouse that's driven to support growth. Otherwise, she's gonna say, "Why are you working so hard? You don't need to work so hard when you spend time with your family." And to me, it's not about spending time. It's more so about the quality time that we spend, right? If I were to stay with my kids for 4 hours and stay downstairs and watch TV and do nothing for 4 hours, do you think they'd rather do that or spend an hour at the arcade with dad having lunch, right? Like they're going to probably remember the arcade than they would the 4 hours of just doing nothing, sitting on the couch. So it's not to me about how much time. It's more focused quality time. And I do that with everybody, by the way, in my life. So I go hard from 5 a.m. until about 8 o'clock at night. If we were doing this interview right now at 8:30, I'd be yawning and probably falling asleep. I'm boring after 8 o'clock. Like y'all don't want to, I saw you guys both in the gym when we were at Chiro WealthCon, right? It was great. I was asleep at 8:30 at night those nights. Like everyone else is like out the bars drinking. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to bed. But it's all about the time together. And
Right.
I just think that's so important for people to just get clear on is just when you're with people, be with people and have that support of the people that want you to grind, but knowing you can have that also balance in your life as well. They would be actually very interesting people to interview, would be my kids too. I'm joking. I wouldn't let you do that, have them on here, but I do think it would be interesting to ask really good questions. And obviously I get that feedback from them too as well, which is really fun because we do the one-on-one trips. So
yeah,
I think that's
still
so
young
cool.
enough to be at the gym at 6 a.m. at Chiro WealthCon and at the bars too late. So
all right. So here's what's interesting, right? Is like you guys know I go to the gym super early. My daughter, who's 9, sets her alarm clock every morning at 6 a.m. Now we don't leave the house typically until about 7:20. Okay, she doesn't have to wake up till probably 6:45. She sets her alarm at 6 a.m. because she wants to wake up so she can be prepared for the day, and also give her time so she's not rushed and actually relaxed. She does it all by herself, by the way. Then on Sunday mornings, I do this Navy SEAL training Sunday mornings at 7:30 with these 2 guys. It's a 2-hour workout. Guess who decided she wanted to start coming about a month ago to my Navy SEAL trainings? My daughter.
That's really cool.
It was, and my friends are like, wait, she's going to do the workout with us? I go, yeah, she actually wants to do the workout with us. Like she sets her alarm at 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning to come with us on a Sunday at 9 when she gets sleep in. But to me, this is what we were talking about earlier was, and this, we'll weave it back real quick, is when somebody says like, I really want to do an Ironman, but having young kids, I want to do this Navy SEAL training, but you know what? Do I really need to do the whole 24 hours? Like they're always watching. And I think for our kids, they don't listen as much as they watch how we are as parents. And when we show them the example that we live our lives by, they naturally are going to want to live that. And that's my best form of leadership, is showing my team, showing my family, showing my friends how I live my life, not telling them how to live their life. That they can live their life however they want. If I show them how to live my life, hopefully that'll inspire them to want to live it better too as well. I'm not perfect, obviously, but I'd like to be as perfect as I can be to my potential. But having them see that, I think, is super important.
And I
What do
think
you
just for the
think?
listeners, like, what does your team look like? Just to, like,
Yeah,
how big is your team?
Man, it's I think right now we're probably like 30 to 32. So we're not massive actually. I mean, to you guys that may sound massive, but right, for like 14 clinics, it's really averages about 2 point something, 2.2. We can run a lean clinic just based on systems. We have really good systems, and we also do our office visit average. I would assume probably higher than the chiropractic profession. I think we average as a company around $77 a visit, cash only, no insurance. So we have really strong care plans, but we have great clinicians in our company, great caretakers. We have really good processes for our new patient experience. But we have usually a doctor and office manager, and then we have obviously a social media manager. We have a director of operations. We have a COO for the company too as well. That was probably somebody I hired too late in the game, was a COO. And we also have a software engineer that works with us, and he's the one who's also doing Chiro 180, but it's also what we use in our company, which is I think one of the best things about it. So that's kind of like our structure. We have a social media manager too as well, by the way. So that's kind of how we built it out. So I would say if somebody was building a company, I think if they are a visionary, and you've probably read this in Traction, if they were a visionary, they've got to hire an operations person.
Yep.
Even if it's a fractional operations person for only 10 hours a week. Because I'm a visionary, I'm horrible at operations. I know systems very well, and they're in my brain, but I need somebody to pull them out of my brain and put it on paper, because I'm not great at that. I can do it, I'm just not great at it.
Yeah.
That's the team.
Yeah, I mean, with all of that, like, I mean, how did you get like to that point? Like, what are some of the, like, I'm sure when you first opened, were you like, all right, yeah, 14 clinics, 15 clinics, like, what are some of the past events that like built your like full send, just go all in like mentality and personality?
Yeah. Have you guys ever heard the quote, "Never waste a good opportunity"?
No.
Or never let a good opportunity go to waste. Some people say never let a good crisis go to waste. But I take a lot of risk. And I think for people that want to have a lot of growth in their life, there's gonna be a lot of risk that's gonna be associated with it. So when we started, Spencer, I'll tell you right now what my goals were, because I remember them so hard. And I still have them written down. My goal was to have 300 patients on auto debits at once a week, and I was charging $150 a month for once a week care. This is back in 2009, though. Okay, and that to me was like, all right, that's $540,000 a year in revenue with one office manager. That puts our profit margins, let's say, at like 60%. So that's like 270 to 300. All right, like that's my 10-year plan, which is funny. We overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10. By 2019, 10 years in, by the way, I had 10 clinics. Okay, we're doing way more than $540,000, by the way, of course, in revenue. And I think for us, what happened was we had really good opportunities show up to our doorstep. And so one of them was a CrossFit gym reached out to me. They said, "Hey, would you be willing to open up we have a space for you for a chiropractic clinic. Would you be willing to do it?" I was like, you know what? Yes, I will do it. And I need you to refer me business though. And it was a easy risk, right? It was a month-to-month deal. We didn't have X-ray. Everybody had to do their day one in my main location. It was a 20-minute drive. So everybody had to do day one in Buckhead, and then they did day two in Sandy Springs. And I did it for the wrong reasons, by the way. And this is actually really important, is I wanted to do multiple locations because I thought it was a good way to make passive income and make more money. Now, I was young when I did this, okay? So for me, I still thought passive income was something where you don't have to work and you can generate money. And if the guy just did what I did when I started my business, then he'll be just as successful and I'll make all this money. It's great. It's easy. Okay. It wasn't that easy. We had no operations manual. We had no training. The contract was one of the worst contracts ever. The way listen to how bad this is. Okay. Actually, I'll tell y'all, this is so bad. The way the contract worked was, let's say it cost $30,000 to open this clinic. Okay. he was, this is so bad. He got like a base of, I think it was like $30,000 for the year. But once we were profitable over $30,000, which means we paid back our, like, say opening, whatever, then he starts making more money. And it was the worst deal of all time. Yeah, dude, it's horrible. Okay. So, he didn't last long. Let's just say he didn't last that long. He lasted about 6 months, but he got that clinic, by the way, doing pretty well. And eventually we brought in another chiropractor. Huh?
This was the contract between you and the CrossFit gym, or between you and the associate doctor?
No. Sorry. It was me and the chiropractor, me and the other
Gotcha.
chiropractor. And so it was a bad deal for him, by the way. It was a horrible deal. And so, and it was just me being like nervous. I was so scared. I was like, I don't want to lose money. So lesson learned. Anyways, we now have somebody in there who's amazing. And we've moved out of the CrossFit gym. I now have this like commercial real estate that we own that's about a mile away from it. It's perfect. But then in 2016, there was a chiropractor that came and he's like, hey, we want to stay in Atlanta. We want to partner with Corrective Chiropractic and I want to work for you. So then I opened up a location for him in Decatur, which is 20 minutes like east of us. This Sandy Springs office is 20 minutes north of us. So now we had this like triangle of these 3 locations. And then it just kept happening where I was meeting these really good chiropractors I thought would be good fits for our company. And we just kept building and building and building. And here's what I tell everybody is to go from 1 to 2 is a lot harder than to go from 2 to 14. Okay. So I could right now, I'm actually in the process right now of potentially acquiring 2 locations in South Carolina within the next 2 weeks. It's like easy for me to do. Okay. But whatever, 12 years ago, oh my gosh, dude, horrible. I mean, horrible leadership, horrible operations. And I think the takeaway from this conversation actually is, first off, your vision is going to change. You just got to have a vision. I think the other takeaway though from this conversation though is going to be is you gotta have like really good systems, man, and you gotta be willing to adapt. And I'm willing to adapt and own my faults. Like I have really good self-awareness. Like I can tell you when I made mistakes, I did things wrong. I can look at my weaknesses and see those. And I think that's what being around good social circles helps, is pull out those weaknesses. Now I'm not going to tell them that, but I'm going to see how they're being a father, or how they're being a leader, how they're being a husband, and be like, I got to step my game. And it helps inspire people to do that. Right. So, yeah, I think that was, it changed a long time, kind of a long answer to get there. But I do think there are some important takeaways though in there, that vision does change, self-awareness, and just strong, really leadership and good systems.
Yeah. When you're talking about systems, what systems are you talking about? Are you talking about everything from the ground up? Are you talking about like back end financial systems? Because I feel like there's so many people that talk about have good systems, but there's like, what do you define? Like what things need a system, and how do you create them?
Yeah, no, I that's such a good question, right? So it's like everything needs a system. I mean, dude, so I think one of the best starting places for people though is to write out every single thing that, like, get a huge whiteboard. And what they write out is, we did this activity, and this was very helpful for us as a company. We wrote out every single thing we do, dude, on a daily basis, from even taking out the trash to cleaning the windows in the office to cleaning the massage tables. I mean, everything, answering the phone, objection management, everything. And we assigned a person to that role. And I think there's a lot of confusion of a lot of clinics, for clinics that do want to grow. So if you have 2 doctors in there, okay, who's responsible for the marketing? Who's responsible for employee management? Who's responsible for, and so getting crystal clear on roles and responsibilities to me is like a very good system for people to start with. And then people will look at weaknesses. And here's where I think systems can get built. So that's to your, this is the exact answer to Spencer's question right here, is systems get built through a SWOT analysis, which is another system. So a system is, everyone builds SWOT analysis, which is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, right? So strengths are things you're already doing really well, but weaknesses, I'll come back to those actually in a second. And there's weaknesses, opportunities. Opportunities to me are what people will do every quarter. So every quarter, our team set were called rocks or goals, and those fall off the opportunities. Weaknesses go on the issues list, which is part of traction. And then threats, I think, are something that people really need to dial in and make sure they have backup plans under each threat. So a great example is Asheville, North Carolina just had a hurricane come through there. You can't prepare for that. But what you can prepare for is we all have the possibility of our offices flooding. What happens? What are you going to do? Like, do you have another chiropractor already knowing that if your office floods, that you could lease their space from them, right? Now, fortunately for me, I have locations everywhere, so it'd be pretty easy for us. But I think for other office, like, what would they do? Let's say there's another pandemic. How are they going to drive revenue from online because they can't see people on brick and mortar? We had a bridge collapse in Atlanta, Georgia, not that long ago. It was about 2 years ago. And what happened is that bridge dropped our revenue by 15% because of the traffic that happened, the traffic patterns in there. So it's like really good systems, but built on a foundation. I think the foundation really for people could start with roles and responsibilities, building out a SWOT analysis, and then from there, think of all the weaknesses, right? And you build systems on those weaknesses and processes around it. Otherwise, man, that's where burnout's going to happen, right? I mean,
Right.
if there's no systems put into place, it's like who's doing what. Everything becomes real squirrely, so it gets really difficult to do things.
I think that's awesome too, because I mean, kind of going back to what we were talking about, I'd written out 1, 3, and 5 year goals and vision casting, and a big goal of mine, and something I even told my friends like in undergrad, like, yeah, I want to own 3 clinics before I'm 35, and so like my 5-year goal is to have opened the other 2 locations. So is there anything on top of what you just mentioned from a system standpoint for someone aspiring to, go from that 1 to 2 and then that 2 to wherever?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be first off, the training process would have to be dialed in, right? Like, how long are they training in that your primary office for? And what are the things that they need to know and be able to do before they were to move on to that location of their own? Is it bring in a certain amount of new patients? Is it have a certain percent of a close rate? Be able to hit certain benchmarks in like their adjusting technique? And then I would have a approach that makes it very uniform. Chiropractors are an interesting species. We are very independent thinkers, and so we like to change everything. Which, if something works, like our clinics and our company that usually follow like by the book, do the best, right? So if I looked at the clinics that are by the book for our company, they do the best. And so for us, like one thing I wish we did better early on was training programs. Such as like the day 1, day 2 process, but also like regular trainings too as well, by the way. Like, what does that look like for them? Why would they want to be there and not open their own practice too as well? That's the thing you always have to be thinking about. It's like, why would they want to stay here when they could just open their own? Why would they want to be with me? And so I think those are just the questions that you would want to be asking yourself, because this happens all the time, by the way. Docs leave. And I think for us, one way we've solved that is we tend to, I like to onboard docs who know what they want. They know that, because I think we were talking about earlier about, the percent of people that are like Josiah or myself, like who have gotten to like certain levels. And I think it's not for everybody, like I said earlier. And I also think entrepreneurship is not for everybody, which is not a bad thing. I think if you took a class right now in chiropractic of 100 students in there, you said, who here wants to open their own clinic by themselves? Probably 80 people will raise their hand. You're telling me 80% of the people in that room should be entrepreneurs? I don't think so. I actually think it's more like probably 15% to 20%. Yep. And I actually think the other portion of those people could probably make more money working somewhere else in a good system, maybe like ours or like yours. What we like to do is find people who have already been in places for 5 years, whether they tried opening up their own, whether they work somewhere else, and they're very clear on what they want. And we would bring them onto our team. So I think for us in the past, one of the mistakes we made was bringing on young doctors who just graduated. They don't know what they want. And then for them, the grass is always greener on the other side because they have nothing to compare anything to. And that was a problem for us. And so they would leave and they would always say, man, I wish I stayed. I wish I never left. But
what do you feel like is the gap? Like, what do you feel like is the misconception around chiropractors wanting to open their clinic right out of the gate versus getting associateship?
I think a lot of them think they'll make more money, for sure. I think they're going to create freedom on time.
Why do you think that is, though?
If you listen to the talking heads, that's what people say. Right? I think people are like, oh, everyone should own their own business and you can make more money and you can have all this time. It's like, I don't know about that. I think there is potential for that. But I have a lot of friends who own their own businesses, and they actually, one of my friends, he makes about $85K a year. Great chiropractor, unbelievable chiropractor. Actually, probably one of the best hands I know. He should be making more than $85K. Not good at marketing, not good at sales, not great at generating new patients. If he worked in my system, he would make, oh my gosh, he'd make so much more than that. But he doesn't want to because he doesn't be told what to do. But
Yeah, what's the difference from that? I mean, yeah, I feel like if you look at the national average for chiropractors, I mean, if you're looking at associate jobs, you're looking at, 60, 70, 80K, like a $90,000 associateship is sick, right?
yeah,
And so like in the corrective chiropractic model, what is like the peak earning potential in that, like to give people some perspective because I mean,
yeah,
like I'll be
we
straight
have
up.
docs. Those we all say, well, we have docs that, dude, that range as low as probably 65 up to like twos in the twos.
Really. Yeah, I mean, dude,
I
I
don't
like I
know
think.
any other. What's up?
Oh, I was just saying, I mean, like, I think there's so many people that want to go out and they want to make 100K, 150K, 250K, 300K as a chiropractor, and they love being a chiropractor, but they open up their own business and then you just get punched in the mouth with all the things that it takes to actually run a business to get it to where you can pay yourself versus being in a really successful system that just gives you the platform for you just to walk right into, not walk right into, you have to earn your way into it,
Yeah,
but gives you the support behind you to do that. I mean, in the first year that I opened, I mean, I didn't pay myself a penny.
yeah,
I made $0. And I think we all come out and be like, dude, I'm going to open up my own practice. And it's not that I didn't have any profit in my business, but it took those same dollars to reinvest into my practice. Right.
yeah.
Like, I
It's
think
interesting. I
so many
think
people, they don't know that. So
no, and what would be interesting to do, and this is probably a good activity for the school to do with students, like some successful chiropractor coming in and doing this with the students is like, hey, what do you guys want? Like deep down, write out your wishes and your wants. Like what is important to you? Is it waking up early? Is it grinding? Is it spending quality time? Like after 6 o'clock, you're done. Like how much money do you want to earn? How much time do you want to spend in marketing? Like what is really important to you? And that would really solve a lot of the problems that we see. But there are opportunities. Now, no one's going to come work for me and just make a ton of money, by the way, from day one. I mean, you got to earn it. But what I always tell my docs is like, become irreplaceable. Like, I want you to become so good that you say to me, hey, Austin, I'm thinking about leaving. And I say, whoa, 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 Spencer, I give you an extra $50,000. Don't leave. Right? Like, that's how good you want to be. If you tell me you're leaving and I say, all right, cool. Well, when's your last day? That's a problem. That's not good. That means
yeah.
you become replaceable, by the way. And I'm probably looking for somebody probably better. Um, it is important though for people to get really, really, really clear on what they want. Man, I wish more chiropractors did pay more money, but I do think those opportunities are out there. It is starting to show up a lot more in the profession, but that's where it also ties back to the sphere of influence, the circle of people. So if there were people that were looking for associates, by the way, and they were at Chiro WealthCon, and we knew that there was an associate there looking for a job at Chiro WealthCon. Okay. And Elise or Lauren or Steph got on stage and was like, hey, we have this associate that's here, doesn't have a job right now, but they came here this weekend because they knew they were around the right group of people and they're looking for an offer from somebody and they want to interview with many of you guys here this weekend. This is her. Here's what she's interested in. Talk to her this weekend. She'd get a job within 24 hours. Right? I mean, it'd
Yeah.
be a no-brainer. And by the way, it would probably be a good job, and she would probably do very well financially, just being around the right people. But they got to put themselves in those situations, and that's not up to us to handhold them in that.
Yeah, to stay on the topic of like
Yeah.
business misconceptions, Zach and I the past 2 years have done like a startup crash course for students. So we invite the chiropractic students from Parker University to come to our What Now startup crash course, where we just give like basics, like hey, you got to have a vision, you got to have a mission, you got to have company core values. You got to know what OVA is. You got to know what PVA is. You have to understand what LTV is. You have to understand the different types of marketing.
Mhm.
Internal, organic, paid, cold outreach, those kind of things, like just basic business vernacular. And we ask, you have to think of what do you want, because that's going to fuel everything else at the beginning. And I would say that talking to a lot of students, a lot of people, I would say a majority of people, at least from what I have heard, I don't know if this is the same for you, Zach, but a lot of students are saying, I just want financial security. I don't want to have to worry about my bills getting paid. I don't want
Mhm.
to have to, I want financial freedom. And so they're like, so I'm going to start up my own practice. Austin, what would you say because I know your answer. What would
Yeah,
you
no,
say
no.
to people who think that and think that, are saying the answer is to start my own practice? Like, what would you say to people who say, I want financial security. I don't want to have to worry about my bills getting paid. What would you say to them?
Well, if you own your own business, you don't have financial security, right? I mean, uh, a fire could happen in my clinics tomorrow, and I have zero security. I'm out. I'm gone. I'm done. Um, and I actually would say I do think experiences are really important. Like I said, what you guys are talking about, by the way, mission, vision, purpose, and core values. I live my life by those things. Okay. So I am a big, big, big advocate. I think a lot of people don't take them seriously. I think a
Yep.
lot of people look at them as woo woo-y and they just don't mean anything. I'm just going to grind. I'm just going to take action. It's like, but why? Why are you taking action? Why are you grinding? Like, you have to have a purpose and a why. If you don't have that, it's very easy to quit and not want to do those things. It's like, we talked about that earlier. It's like, I do Ironman. I've done swim Alcatraz, 100-mile runs, Navy SEAL trip. I do those things because they're hard, but I'm very clear on like my why. So to your point of like, it is important to get clear on those things. And but you got to compare it to yourself, like deep down for you. You cannot look at other people and be like, oh, but am I going to get left behind? I think somebody could build strong financial security, by the way, working somewhere else. Why? Like, for example, for us, 401k matching program, profit sharing program, health benefits, short-term disability, long-term disability. Like, we offer all of company retreats that we do twice a year. Like, we have our company retreat in a couple weeks, and we're you guys know who Dan Bay is from Close for Cairo? Like, he's coming. He's our presenter this year. We had Joey Coleman, who wrote the book Never Lose a Customer Again, come to our retreat. So we have these big name speakers come to our retreat who will share, but it helps my docs, for them, I think, create very strong financial security for them to see their potential and their possibilities. Like, I think if we go back to the beginning of this conversation, it was Spencer saying, hey, a lot of people mentioned quotes that you said, or they mentioned your name from Chiro WealthCon. And, I always think, and this is one thing I'm really big in, is people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's doing those things at Chiro WealthCon or wherever it is I'm speaking is, man, I'm just a real person. I'm raw. I'm not some like BSer on stage trying to get likes, right? I want people to live a good life, man. That's really, at the end of the day, all I care about. My income does not come from a Chiro WealthCon, right? Like, my income comes from corrective chiropractic, my real estate. But at the end of the day, it all ties back to the most important thing, which is family being happy. And so, just being so clear on that stuff, like from what we kind of talked about earlier, man, is yeah. I just think being strong leaders is very, very valuable.
Definitely know we are running low on time, but I think an important piece to your story, and you mentioned like the financial security, and if your practice burns down tomorrow, what would happen, right? And one thing you mentioned quite a bit at Chiro WealthCon was building passive income, or income not from your clinics through commercial real estate and real estate. And so I definitely want to give you time to plug your event in February. But when did you start your investing into commercial real estate, and what did that look like?
Yeah. So in 2014, my landlord of the building I was in, where I was renting from, told me, hey, we're knocking your space down and we're putting in an apartment complex. It's like, oh God, like, I'm a young kid. I'm like 31 years old, like freaking out. Didn't know what I was going to do. Reached out to one of my friends, and he said, there's an office condo for sale. You should buy it. It's like, oh, what would it look like? He's like, it'd be like $2,500 a month. It's actually less than what you're paying now, but you would own it. I was like, oh my gosh, let's do it. But I only want to do 2,000 square feet. That's it. And so we did. And that was the beginning of, that was like the beginning of it all for me, man. That's when we got wild. But it all started in 2014. And from there, the model has always been to acquire the real estate for the clinics we go into. And the reason why is, we had a clinic one time in Philadelphia, and the clinic failed, but I had the real estate. So I lost about $100,000 on that clinic. However, I made $100,000 by selling the real estate. So I actually netted zero, which was great. But could you imagine if that clinic failed? I lost $100,000. I'm also tied into a lease, okay, of some insane lease. I would have gotten destroyed financially. And so I think also real estate gives freedom too as well, and financial security. But yeah, to your point of like, if corrective chiropractic went away tomorrow, I'd be fine. We would have a real estate portfolio that does drive revenue from income. And I think that's something for people to be thinking about down the road. But I'm all about diversification. So, we have our event coming up, Growth Summit coming up, Best Practices. It's coming up February 6th, 7th. And what's interesting about that is Saturday morning, I have a commercial realtor coming who actually has deals already available to share with people so they can see what it looks like to invest in a deal that they can take home with them to see if they want to invest in any of those deals, which I use him. Then I have the guy who I invest in oil and gas. I have 2 oil wells in Kansas. So he's coming to as well to talk about what that looks like and create and show people opportunities to as well. So they'll have opportunities to do that. Then I have a guy who I do private equity and private fund deal and debt deals with. He's coming to as well, and he has deals already available. Actually, no, he doesn't have deals available, but he eventually will have deals available long term. He's on a wait list right now, but I've given him a ton of money too as well. So these 3 people for me have generated a lot of asset revenue for my life, and I'm bringing them to the event in February. So Saturday morning for literally 2.5 hours, people are going to get to hear the people that I work with every day on how to create more wealth for their life. So it's good to put yourself in the right rooms. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
That's pretty sweet.
I'm excited
But I started
to be
in
there.
I started in 2014, man. That's our model now going forward.
Yeah, I think it's the McDonald's way, right?
Yeah, but it's all about diversification. I like real estate. You know what I also like? Crypto. I can finish with this story, by the way. I should be worth $50 million right now. You want to hear this crazy story? Back in 2000, if you guys Google, let's see. Actually, if I Google crypto and we Google crypto chiropractor, okay. Let's see if I still. I used to come up on it. Oh, there's more people now that are on there. Okay. But anyways, if you Google crypto chiropractor and you type in the name Austin Cohen, for example, okay, back in 2013, you'll see an article that was written. It says Bitcoin takes another step into the medical arena. An interview with Dr. Austin Cohen. And what happened was in 2013, I had a patient come into my office. This is all about diversification, okay? I had a patient come into my office and she said, her name was Crystal. She said, "Hey, Austin, I work for this company, and this company is a merchant service company for Bitcoin. And what we do is we're trying to get Bitcoin to the marketplace. So I'd like to start having you accept Bitcoin, and my company is going to start coming to your clinic, and we're going to pay you in Bitcoin." I was like, "No, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, how am I going to account for this?" She's like, no. Trust me, it's going to be worth like $1,000 a share one day. Like, you'll be so rich if you take this. I'm like, this is the biggest scam of all time, but I'll do this. I'll take 1 Bitcoin. And it was like a couple $100 back then, right? So, dude, I took 1. Now, obviously, it's worth like $92,000, not 1. But she said to me in those conversations, she's like, if everybody came and signed up for these treatment plans that you're recommending, she's like, you could have about 60 Bitcoin. I was like, the other day I was thinking, I was doing the math. So after Trump got elected, it shot through the roof, and now it's like $90,000 a share. So I was like, 90 times 60, that's $54 million. Got it. Talk about a mistake, huh? Like, wow. So going back to, like, we talked earlier about risks and opportunities, that was a failed risk on my part, by the way. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain in that opportunity. And that's a $54 million lesson I learned. So
I thought you were going to say you were the guy that paid for your pizza in Bitcoin.
No, but listen, hey, for 1 month of treatment, I got 1 Bitcoin. And you know what? It's now worth $90,000. Show me anybody else who turned $400 into $90,000 with 1 month of chiropractic care. All right.
That's true. That's
crazy.
True.
Yeah.
That's
Y'all got to look at that article. Look at that article online, though. It's interesting. I'm like, I didn't read that article. I'm like, oh, my $54 million.
That's crazy, man. Dude, that's amazing. Well, Austin, dude, we are wrapping up on our time together here, but tell everybody how they can sign up for your event in February and where they can stay connected with you. You have an awesome newsletter. And so tell people how they can continue to stay connected with you.
Yeah. I mean, best place to stay connected to me, either on Instagram, just Dr. Austin Cohen. And then in there, just go to the bio and you can sign up for my weekly newsletter. It goes out every Friday and it's very short, 2-minute read. I share my business, what thoughts on my mind, personal thoughts on my mind, quote on my mind, and what I'm currently listening to, watching, or reading. That's it. It's very simple and quick. I actually got that idea from Tim Ferriss. He does the Bullet Point Friday, and I love it. And I'm a chiropractor, and chiropractors can relate to other chiropractors. And so it just, I think it's done very well. Dude, we have a 68% open rate, by the way, in our newsletter.
Wow.
It's insane.
That's solid.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's insane, actually, right now. Actually, I talked about the election and business lessons from the election. It had a 78% open rate. So we were like, controversial topics work. So that's the best place to find me. Best practices, which we're actually renaming to Growth Summit. We have 61 people registered. We're going to take 100 because that's all the room can hold. But if you use the code What Now, it takes $100 off the ticket, so it's actually only $395. I obviously don't make really any money on these events. Most events cost way more than this, but we did it last year. We sold out. It was so much fun. I actually love it a lot. And you know what? That's actually why I do it. Like, to be able to hang out with 100 chiropractors who are just cool people, who are fun. They didn't spend a lot of money on some event, so now they're like, "Oh, I didn't get this event." Like, it's a rocking event, by the way. Actually, on Friday night, we have this lady who owns a company called Stat Wellness. As chiropractors, I would definitely look up her Instagram too. She has 5 locations and has built an unbelievable brand and culture. It's unbelievable. And she's going to talk about that at Best Practices. And then after that, we have a happy hour with live music in the garden. And then Saturday morning we grind. And then Saturday afternoon, we go through a 2-hour AI immersive experience where he's not just going to give you tools, but we're going to actually use the tools together and build. No, it's one of my buddies, this guy, Ethan King. He's really good. He's a big like EO speaker. I don't know if you ever heard about him or not, but he's a big time EO speaker. He's got books on all AI stuff. So yeah, fascinating guy. But it's gonna be a 2-hour practical session. So it's gonna be fun, man. And I'm gonna work out with everyone Saturday morning. We're gonna do some hard workouts. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun experiences. So if you want to come, just go to Chiro180.com, click on 10 best practices. Use code What Now. It's $100 off. And we got 39 spots left as of November 19th.
Awesome.
Nice.
Look forward to seeing people there.
Zach's going to be there.
Yep.
I'm going to have to come too, I guess. So
come on. Y'all should just share a house down there. Wait, I have one question for you guys though.
Better than what we did at Chiro WealthCon. We shared a room. Which,
yeah.
No, you guys, these are like really nice houses. They have townhomes, condos. I mean, wait till you guys see pictures of this community, by the way. Google Serenbe. It's unbelievable. We actually had the founder of Serenbe speak last year at our event. It was an unbelievable story. Wait, before we go, Zach, why do you have a Michael Jackson jacket behind you?
I need to give it back. I'm doing it's what I wear during my reports, just to like really. No, I'm just kidding. During financials, I'm doing a dance. It's called Dancing for the Stars. My city does a charity event every year, and they ask local celebrities to dance, and so I'll be dancing with a professional dancer, and that's one of my jackets for it. To finish off is when I have a lot of mentors and a lot of people I look up to. My hair looks a little crazy right now. I don't know why through the headphones, but I have a lot of mentors, a lot of people I look up to. And I'm probably Zach. How old are you? 28.
Yeah. How old are you, Spencer?
27.
All right. Spencer's internet is as good as Netflix was for the Tyson.
Hey, bro. Wow, that's rough. It was bad, but geez,
Zach knows what I'm talking about. Anyways, but here I remember being y'all's age. I started my practice when I was 27, okay? And I remember being y'all's age, and I was talking to people who were where I wanted to be, and they were my age, like 40 to 45 years old. And I think what's interesting about that is the way that I was able to get more conversations with those people, and the way I was able to kind of be in those rooms and just stay, I think, at a better relationship with them, not from the standpoint of like mentee mentor, but more of like a togetherness standpoint was I took action. And so I think something from this conversation would be like, if next year, for example, October rolls around and I see Zach on Instagram and he completed an Ironman, that would be awesome. Like, he talked about he wants to do it, but if I was like on his Instagram, I was like, dude, this guy talked about wanting to do it and he freaking did it, that would be powerful. And so it doesn't have to be an Ironman, by the way. It could be like a half Ironman. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying, my point is, like, everyone says things they want to do. It would be rare for me to say that without actually doing it, by the way. And so I think the way you kind of move up along these chapters quicker is just take action, man. Do it. Like, sign up for something next year. That's hard.
My Jesse Itzler Masogi right now would be High Rocks, but I feel like that might be too easy. So maybe the half Ironman has to get on the calendar.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So cool. This is fun, guys. I love what you guys are doing, by the way. You guys are doing some really good things for this profession, and the profession needs this. So please keep doing it. Consistency is key. I forgot how many podcasts, they start and they don't make it, the first like 3 months. And yeah, if you guys ever need me for anything, I would help you guys out with whatever you guys need, man. This is great.
Cool.
Really appreciate it, Austin.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
been
thanks,
great.
Austin, man.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much for being on the What Now podcast.
Peace.
Later.
Peace. Dang, was my internet really that bad the whole time?
Later, buddy.